In this video, I'm going to break down the 3 really important questions that you need to ask yourself if you're contemplating leaving a marriage or before you ask for a divorce. So, hi, I'm Sophie Orozco. I help people turn around their marriages. And whether you should stay or whether you should go is a question that I help my clients answer every single day. And I think once you make that decision, obviously things start to get a little bit more complicated. Divorce proceedings are underway. Most people then go and hire a lawyer. So I think that you really need to take this question very seriously and you need to think it through so that you're making a decision that you don't regret down the line. And even though I help people turn around their marriages, I don't believe every single marriage is meant to work out. I do believe that there are some marriages where divorce is definitely the best thing for both people, the healthiest thing for both people, and the healthiest thing for a family as a whole. But overall, I help people turn around their marriages, and I see so many marriages turn around. And I also see so many people prematurely asking for a divorce that they later regret down the line. So we're going to go through these 3 questions that I want you to ask yourself in order to just have that real clarity. So the first thing I want you to ask yourself is, do I really want this divorce, or am I using this as a tactic to get my spouse to change? This is something I see every single day. I actually just talked to somebody about this yesterday where he asked his wife for a divorce, but he didn't actually really want it. He just wanted her to have a wake-up call and for her to change and for her to start doing some of the things that he'd been asking for a really long time. However, his plan totally backfired. She ended up moving out, and now they're in divorce proceedings that he didn't even want in the first place, but he just didn't know how to get what he wanted, right? So make sure that if you are asking for a divorce, that you have thought it through, that you have sat with it for a while, that you've meditated, prayed, journaled, done all the things that helps you get really, really clear, that helps you get right with yourself before you make a rash decision. Asking for a divorce or going through all of the separation, especially if you've got children, is incredibly unsettling for everybody involved, not to mention incredibly expensive. So I help people even after divorce papers have been signed, even after people have got divorced, turn relationships around. But it obviously gets more confusing, more complicated, and more expensive the further that you go throughout the process. So do not make a decision from a place of emotion is the first thing that I would say. Definitely don't make a decision to create a reaction from the other person. Assume that when you say this is what I want to do, that they are going to not necessarily agree, but not that they're going to suddenly change and have this big change of heart. And it's kind of like more of an ultimatum, because that goes wrong more times than I can tell you. The second thing that I really think that you need to ask yourself before you go ahead and get a divorce or a separation is, does this pattern feel familiar to me? Have you been in another relationship before where you ended up in the same place with the same problems? Does it feel familiar to you from your childhood? Were you in your childhood, did you experience some of the same things or some of the same feelings? Because patterns, they repeat. Patterns tend to repeat over and over and over again in multiple relationships. This is why 50% of first marriages end in divorce, 70% of second marriages end in divorce, 80% of third marriages end in divorce. So statistics show us that people are not getting better every single time they're getting married. Their pattern is just repeating itself. And so if you feel, okay, this feels kind of familiar, I've been here before, it's definitely what I experienced where I decided to work on my own marriage and turn it around, because the feelings that I was having felt so familiar to feelings that I'd had in other relationships. It took me much longer to get to that point, and we had children and we had a mortgage and we had all those things that I might have not had in previous relationships, but the pattern was familiar. And I decided I want to really work on what I'm bringing to the relationship, because whether this relationship works or not, I do not want to repeat this. This is too painful, too difficult. So ask yourself, does this feel familiar to me? Be really honest and sit with that, because if it's a familiar feeling, then it's a pattern. And that is worth addressing, whether this relationship works or not. Because if it's a pattern, then it's something you can heal and change. And usually that will actually transform the relationship, right? I'm not saying that they don't have things that to blame for them, of course, right? But it takes two. But if it feels familiar to you, then it's worth investigating, because that will not change in your next relationship. right? And especially if you have to go through the pain of going through the divorce, you want to find this out now before you spend hundreds of thousands of dollars or however much it's going to be, maybe not that much, but a lot, and tear your family apart. It's worth finding that out now. Right. The third thing that you really want to ask yourself is, do I feel that I have given this relationship the best effort that I can give it? Have you given it your all? Or are you just throwing in the towel because you don't know what to do next? The thing is, relationships are tricky, and most people don't have the tools and the skills to turn it around. I know I went to multiple therapists to try and get help with my relationship, and no one could really help me. And it wasn't until I went really deep into figuring this out, and I did multiple coaching programs, hired multiple coaches, spent a lot of money really, really deciding that I was going to try and figure this out, that I started to get the answers that I was looking for. So the truth is, there's not readily available good information out there. And I would really ask you to consider whether you've given it your best shot before you go down the path of just ending this relationship, because the dating world is not all that it's cracked up to be. It might not be as good on the outside of this relationship as you think it is, right? The grass is not always greener on the other side. It's greener where you water it. So if you haven't given it that full effort, I would really say, think about that, right? Ask yourself that question. So those are the three questions that I would really ask you to think about. Again, I help people turn around their marriages, even marriages that feel too far gone. If you're interested in talking with me or my team, you can click the link in the bio. You can also head over to Instagram, where I spend a lot of time hanging out. Send me a DM. And I wish you all the best, and I will talk to you soon.